Greetings, everyone. It's time for another impressions video, this time on the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Activision was kind enough to send us a code for this game, so we're covering it a bit earlier than a full playthrough would. Yay!
Please understand, they have us by this. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's Spyro. They're great games.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is gonna be more of a thing for you two. I'm just here, I guess, as mediator, is to keep the conversation going. Because again, just to reiterate what I said in our original Spyro commentary, which you can find in the playlist somewhere around there, I'm sure.
Oh, now I
Uh,
gotta edit
I
that.
didn't.
Damn it.
I didn't play Spyro as much, if at all, as Crash did. Even though they were around the released relatively around the same time. I don't know. I didn't. Spyro didn't grab me as Crash did. Even though there were many things to enjoy about the game. It wasn't my cup of tea per se. But I also say this as someone who never played the second or third games, which I hear are much better.
So you
Uh,
see, but even though I didn't have a PlayStation growing up, I'm 100% the opposite. I never had any interest in Crash, and Spyro always seemed like way more fun to me personally.
You're also the Banjo-Kazooie guy, so...
Yeah, whereas Crash is more of a traditional 2D platformer in 3D, Spyro is generally more like a twist on the formula set by Banjo and Super Mario 64 rather than trying to emulate something a little bit older that Crash was sort of trying to do. I mean, I did play a little bit of Spyro when I was growing up, but those were the GBA games and they weren't very good. So we're not going to talk about those.
we can say that, right?
Yeah. Hey, Activision
Okay.
isn't.
No, we're here.
Activision
We're here
isn't
to talk
reuniting
about...
those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're reigniting the original three, the really good ones that everyone enjoys from the PlayStation games.
Yeah. So this is my first. This was my first time playing the original games. I had played Spyro 2 once at my friend Catherine's house a long time ago. So even this is playing 2 is still mostly a fresh experience, but this was still my first time playing 1. At the time of this recording, I have not played 3 yet, but I will have by the time I'm editing this. So I guess Ryan will have more to say about 3 than I will. But yeah, I really enjoyed what I've played so far. Like, I enjoyed Spyro 1 actually a lot more than I thought I would. Because a lot of people are like, oh, Spyro 1 is not as good as 2 or 3. Those are the really good ones. But I found myself really enjoying Spyro 1. Even though there were some small hiccups along the way.
Spyro 1 is a very relaxing game to me because there's not a lot of fluff there. You just kind of go through, you collect everything you can, and then you kind of just move on. It's a very simple, a very straightforward game comparatively to 2 and 3, which have a lot of side stuff in it.
Yeah, I've
If
already
that makes any
noticed
sense.
that, even though I've only played like the first 2 levels of Spyro 2. Like Spyro 1, for one thing, in Spyro 1, you can just get to the end of the level and you can 100% every level as soon as you enter it. In Spyro 2, there's backtracking, like right from the start. So,
A little bit. I'm not sure if the all moves code still works in the Reignited
from
Trilogy.
what I've heard, every code still works in the
Okay,
game.
so yeah, that's probably what I'll do whenever I get to recording Spyro 2 Reignited, is I'll just use the move code.
Yeah, but then moneybags won't have anything to do with that money that you're supposed to
I
get.
don't care about money bags.
Aw.
Yeah,
Let's discuss the remake though for a second here because
worst kept secret after a Crash Insane.
It was what
here's the
everybody
thing, though.
wanted.
It was what everybody wanted, and I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys will assume otherwise, I think these were sort of. I think Spyro Reignited was probably in development before Insane Trilogy was released, but not before, but not simultaneously. Because our earliest taste, if I remember correctly, was with a demo code for Insane Trilogy. Because there was a little teaser with I remember with Crash Bandicoot loading up the system, and then it's like the next day you'll be able to experience Reignited Trilogy.
So I know that they did keep the code that made the. There was a code in the original PlayStation version of Crash 3 that gave you a Spyro the Dragon demo. I remember hearing that during an update to the Crash Insane Trilogy, that they then that they then, it wasn't in the original version of the game, but when they did do the update, then it would play the trailer for Spyro Reignited, but I think that was like a couple of months after the game came out.
So I think it was to them it was a safe assumption that if we're gonna remake Crash Bandicoot, people are probably gonna want Spyro immediately after.
Yeah, almost certainly.
And it makes sense because the two were pretty much neck and neck as far as like platformers you should be playing on the PlayStation back in the 90s. So, I mean, thanks, Crash. I guess we have you to thank once again for this, but I mean, and for the better, because everybody I know that played Spyro wanted remasters so badly, and again, I never really played a whole bunch of Spyro, but I can say from the get-go, this remake looks gorgeous.
It's a beautiful looking game.
Yeah, for sure.
It fits the art style perfectly. I was actually a little surprised that they added as much detail to the enemies as they did. I thought they were going to keep them fairly simple. Obviously, update all the polygons and textures and stuff for them, but they added a lot more detail to the enemies I wasn't expecting.
No, the game does definitely look gorgeous. Like, I've looked up footage of the PlayStation games just out of curiosity, and this is a jump like basically no other. Like, this is one of the best looking remakes I've really seen. Like, I think I notice it more here than I think I've noticed it more here than from the footage I've seen of the Crash remaster, because
the original Crash games have a lot less to look at, though, for the most part, because they're hallway games.
Yeah, that's.
I'll disagree on that one. I thought the Crash games always had a lot to look at. That's one thing I will praise Crash Bandicoot over, was having really organic and beautiful looking level design.
I'm talking about like wide scale open area sort of things.
Okay, well, yeah, in that case, sure.
Yeah, I think all these games do look. Both games look beautiful, but I really noticed the improvements for Spyro, particularly in Spyro 1 with the dragons, where they all mostly look the same. Where here they all have really cute designs. Like, one of them has sheep slippers.
I'm so happy.
And things
yeah,
like
I'm
that.
so happy that they gave all the dragons their own unique design.
Yeah, I mean, I think their dialogue is all exactly the same, but...
Yeah, the dialogue is exactly the same, and including all the "thank you for releasing me."
Thank you for releasing me. Wow, Spyro, thanks, but I gotta go.
So I have to ask, though, in the remaster, since I've not played it myself, do they now pronounce it as Nork, or do they still Gnork?
No,
The announcer still says Gnork, but all the dragons say Nork.
they make it
Say
more
Nork,
clear
okay.
that he's mispronouncing it, basically. Like, he's going, but what about Ganasty Gnork? That's basically, they're making it clear that the guy just doesn't know what he's talking about. They also make the opening cutscene a lot more clear that it's a TV broadcast, because he's actually watching it on the TV as opposed to the weird cuts in the original that just weren't very...
Kind of there.
Yeah,
So what is it, full out Gex?
Kind of, yeah.
Gex.
I think that's a subtle hint. I think it's a subtle hint, guys. We're getting Gex remasters for next year, which I probably wouldn't play, to be honest. I'd probably play the second one, but that's about it.
To get to the gameplay of Spyro 1 a little bit, it does have a little bit of the Crash Insane problem where it's not exactly one-to-one, so if you've played them as much as old fans have, you're going to be thrown off a little bit.
So, as someone who hasn't played it at all, I thought the game controlled fine, but there were some points where I felt that some jumps were very precise. Like, the biggest one for me is the one in Treetops, where I died a lot trying to do that, but that was mostly because the first jump where you're trying to make it over to that big platform, I kept on ramming my head against that wall, because it felt like it was a damn near frame-perfect jump that you had to make in order to get on there. And I lost something
Treetops can still suck it.
I lost something like 30 lives, I think.
Oof.
To that level. So, because I had like 25 lives when I went in. I game overed. I went back into the level and I game overed again. So, yeah.
Jesus.
But the level's fun except for that one jump at the very end. The level's really fun, I thought. But because supercharging around is fun. It's just, there's just that.
It's all over instant death pits.
Yeah, it's all over instant death.
One of my, to go into the first game at least, one of my gripes with the original that I remember was getting all the gems, as in just collecting them all at the field. Does the remasters do anything to make it a little easier?
It does have the
mitigate the issue?
It does have the sparks point at treasure.
I didn't know that though
Ability.
until after I beat the game is the thing. So I found them all legitimately
Oops.
because in the original game, in Spyro 2 at least, it was I think you pressed both shoulder buttons and then sparks pointed. In this game, it's L3, and I didn't know that. Instead, Spyro will do a little roll thingy. If you
He had that in Spyro 1, yeah.
Oh, he had the roll in Spyro 1? I actually did not
Yeah.
know that. I have never seen anybody use it ever. So
Because it's completely useless.
yeah, so
Because everything else is totally fine.
It's just breakdance kick.
yeah, so
Spyro is a smidge heavier than what he was in the original PlayStation, which can make some glides a little difficult.
I'm really appreciating the hover move I almost called him Crash in Spyro 2 because it
Yeah,
Crash Dragon.
everyone was hoping they'd put that into Spyro 1, but I guess not. They did, however, add skill points into Spyro 1.
Yeah, and most of them are pretty easy. The only one that I couldn't get was finding the secret room in the last hub world, which I guess I'll find eventually.
Now, what are skill points?
They're just obligatory. In the original 2 and 3, they were just kind of hidden little tasks you could do, like burn all the trees in the first level in Spyro 3 or so.
Okay.
They don't really. They just are for over 100% completion
They're
bonuses.
just bragging rights.
They
Yeah.
were achievements before achievements, but the big problem I had with them in the PlayStation games, from what I had seen and from what I had played in Spyro 2, was
They didn't tell you
that
in the
they
original
didn't tell you
PlayStation
what
versions.
they were, but now they're just on the list, so you don't have to like do random crap and and hope that you get one. They're just you can look at what they are and then try to do them. They're completely optional. All you get if you do all of them is an art gallery, and you do get an extra life for each one, so that's good, I suppose, as well. Because at least in Spyro 1, I did need those lives just for treetops. The rest of the game is pretty easy.
Yeah, aside from Treetops, Spyro 1 is a very relaxing game.
Yeah, I got a perfect on the final boss on my first try, so
Nice.
yeah, that was cool, I suppose.
Also, a weird little quirk of Reignited that they kept the toasty glitch.
What's the toasty glitch?
In the original version of Spyro 1 on PlayStation, you had to, quote-unquote, complete a world of the Artisans, which is the main world overall, in order to access Toasty. Now, what most people do is they go and 100% everything and they just do the exit level function, which, still gives you 100%. However, if you don't use an exit portal, it doesn't count as, quote-unquote, completing a stage.
Okay, you see,
So,
I was using
so
the exit
I'm
portals
lucky
paranoid out of being paranoid, so okay.
yeah, no, if you just use exit function from all the stages like normal, like most people did, you won't unlock Toasty. And I'm lucky I know that, even though I fall for it every time.
So I don't know if you've played any of Spyro 3 yet, but I know that in Spyro 3, the greatest hits version of the game added a bunch of stuff that wasn't in the original. Do you know if this version of the game is based off the original or the greatest hits version?
I haven't played enough of it to really be able to tell you.
Because I know that it does some stuff like their final boss music.
They fixed up music, yeah.
There wasn't any final boss music in Spyro 3, apparently. There was just
The first stage music.
First stage, which seems a little bizarre to me, but okay. But yeah, but I really do enjoy the way these games play. Like, I think one thing that I just hadn't really noticed is that the games just are fun to control, which is really important for a platformer specifically. But it was just really smooth, and I like running around with Spyro. The charge and the gliding, it's just a really fun game to play, even if you're not doing much at the moment. Like, if you're just looking for where the last gems are or whatever, I'm still having fun because the movement is so good,
Yeah, in exchange for having a slightly more heavy glide, they did make his base jump a lot more easy to control compared to the PlayStation games, I feel.
What was
So there's
weird
a
about
weird-
his
there's a
jump
weird little-
in the PlayStation games?
Because he was basically just kind of stiff while in the
Okay.
air.
That makes sense. Okay.
Because, early PlayStation 1, they're not sure if you're going to be using the D-pad or not, so
Yeah, you can still use the D-pad to move Spyro, but
it works better with the control stick in this version, I
Yeah.
feel.
yeah. So yeah,
That's Spyro 1.
Yeah, basically. Spyro 2, I have only played like a little bit of the first level for this one, but how like most of you I consider for most people I hear either Spyro 2 or Spyro 3 tends to be their favorite. Like I hear a little bit about Spyro 1, but not nearly as much as 2 or 3. Did you
Spyro 1 is just a much more basic game compared to 2 and 3, which is the thing.
Okay. But Ryan, what camp are you on for the 2v3 argument?
I'm oddly the opposite of Crash. I like Spyro 2 more than 3.
Oh, okay.
Spyro 3 just has a lot of fluff and a lot of weird side stuff that gets kind of frustrating after a while.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that a lot of one big thing about Spyro, well, 2 has mini games as well, but Spyro 3,
Not as many.
well, they're more just from what I've seen of Spyro 2, they're not so much. They might feel like mini games, and there are some like the hockey one. Yeah, but there's a lot more just random challenges, but you're still controlling Spyro as he normally is. Whereas from what I've seen in Spyro 3, there's a lot of different gameplay styles. Where
in the original Spyro 3, they were kind of running out of ideas on what to do with Spyro, considering he's a quadruped.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's why they had all the different characters and stuff. So at the time of this recording, I haven't played any of Spyro 3, so I can't say for how fun any of the individual mini games really are. But
I mean, Spyro 3 is a perfectly good game. I just think 2 is better.
Yeah, I don't think
it's no different than really the Crash 2 and 3 thing. It's like what you like is really a matter of preference, not because one is clearly superior than the other.
Yeah, that's basically what I've heard anyway. So,
also, doing a little bit of research, and we're not in Spyro 3 yet, but Spyro 3 Reignited does seem to be based off the greatest hits version.
Okay, that's good.
That's more or less what I
better
expected.
Version, even though on PlayStation it has the really, really ugly cover.
Green. Yeah.
It's also really weird. Like, just it's quick diversion. Like the version of Spyro 3 on the PSN is the Black Label version.
Yeah, which is bizarre.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Which
it's not the
Spyro Reignited Trilogy available now.
It's not the only game that's done that though. Like, isn't Crash one of the earlier versions that isn't as good?
Yeah, the versions of Crash 2 the versions of Crash 2 and 3 on PSN are 1.0, which in Crash 2's case it's 1.0, which means it doesn't have analog control.
That's
so yeah, Crash 3 that's not the case because DualShock was already a thing at that point, but
regardless,
yeah, it's really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, Spyro 2. I think it's the best game of the main 3, basically, of the franchise at this point. As a result, the characters are fun. I'm glad that they really kind of showed the personality of like Alora, Hunter, and the Professor in the cutscenes.
I like all the new voices. Like, it's so nice not having a dumb voice for Hunter. Like, I know that the original
it worked for the time.
Yeah, but the new voice is just better, I think. I do like all the voice acting. I think the Tom Kenny Spyro's good. I like the new Alora voice.
I haven't gotten to the Thunderos in Spyro 2. Does Tom Kenny still do the SpongeBob voice for the little minion guys?
I think so. I'm actually listening to one right now. But it's slightly different. Tom Kenny is still the professor, I've noticed.
My pencil!
My pencil.
It's a joke of the franchise.
No, you see, you guys mentioned SpongeBob earlier, and I just thought of the artist who lost his pencil in the ocean.
My pencil! Nihoi minoi!
Doodle Spyro?
Yeah.
Doodle Spyro voiced by Tony Alveski or whatever his name was from the original Spyro one. Who is Rocco?
The voice of Spyro and the original was Carlos.
Oh, sorry, I got his name wrong.
I'm tripping on his last name, but he was Rocco.
Yeah,
basically from Rocco's Modern Life, which is funny. Tom Kenny was also Heifer in Rocco's Modern Life, so I'd imagine it's like, we can't get Carlos. Fuck, get the cow.
Well, no, Tom Kenny was Spyro in 2 and 3, so.
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Okay,
yeah.
So as early as the second game. Yeah.
And he's the most well-known voice for the character. Like, they've had other people. Well, I guess
You-
arguably
Elijah-
the most well-known
Mr.
voice
Frodo.
for is Elijah Wood. No, let me rephrase. The most iconic voice for the character is a more accurate
Forgot
phrase.
Elijah Wood was Spyro for a while. Yeah, I didn't even play Spyro, and I heard about that part most.
Well, that's the only, from what I hear, that's the only remarkable thing about the Legend of Spyro trilogy. So, you know.
Yes. Did you do any like the orb challenges when you played the game?
When I played the game, yeah, I basically I rushed through it to get to the end because I was only able to play for a couple hours. So I did beat it, but I skipped a lot. But I did do like the trouble with the trolley things, like way back when. But yeah, so the game really is fun. I like, one thing that I think I enjoy about the game is that it allows you to get the satisfaction of completing a full stage in a relatively short period of time. Because if you compare a game, the levels in Spyro, to a game like the Mario 3D platformers, the exploration ones, so 64 Odyssey, Sunshine, or Banjo-Kazooie or 2E, though in those games, levels, you're there for a while. There's less of them, but you know, you're in a level for, you know, anywhere from an hour to maybe like 4 or 5, depending on the game. Whereas in Spyro, every level you can get done with in 30 minutes or less, even on your first try. Meaning that you get to get that exploration fix, but a lot quicker than in some other games, which I think is really, really cool.
And the orb challenges are there basically to give you something to do when you either go back or for 100%.
Yeah, basically. Because you only need the orbs to get to the final boss, right?
Well, yeah, the best ending stuff.
Yeah, because I know that you need the talus. You just need to get to the end of the level in order to go to the next
Keep
world.
progressing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you need the orbs in order. But the orbs are there, yeah, to give you something a little bit extra, which I appreciate. In Spyro 1, the dragons are just kind of there so that you can pick them up. There's not really much else to them.
Yeah, when you know what you're doing in Spyro 1, you can beat levels in like less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, if you're only going for the dragons, you can be done in like 5, because you just run for them. Although I do think you do need to get at least some treasure in order to beat the game.
Each world has different requirements for getting to the next one, so you do need to get some amount of the other stuff, but not a lot.
Yeah, so you can get through it pretty quickly, which I do enjoy. But yeah, one thing that I do want to bring up, just back to the graphics, is that there's a lot of really cool details in this game that I enjoy, like stuff like, you know, stuff burning when you set it on fire, but also like being able to goof around on the loading screens. I really appreciate, because I don't know if you could do this in the original versions, but if you like press the fire button while you're doing the flying loading screen, Spyro will breathe fire, and he'll also like flap his wings if you press the jump button, and do turns in the air if you press the R buttons.
I never actually tried that.
I don't know if you can do that in the original, but you can definitely do it here, and it is just a lot of fun.
Another good, fun little attention to detail, at least for the PS4 version, or maybe I don't know if it'll work on the PC version if you use a DualShock, but the light on your PlayStation 4 DualShock controller will change based on Sparks' health.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
It starts yellow, then blue, then green, then red.
So, one thing that I should bring up, because I've noticed a lot of people mentioning this, is that there has been, some people have had issues with motion sickness playing this. Because of...
I personally have it, but I can see why.
I don't usually have that that problem personally, but I do know that some people do, and I have noticed it. Like, if you just stand still and hold the control stick to the side, you will kind of notice it. It's got something to do with the motion blur effect that they use, and it's not major, but I think that it would be good if they could add like an option to turn the sensitivity of that down. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already an option on PC, but for the console release too, I think that would be a good idea. So yeah,
agreed.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just a minor thing. I think it might be a less big thing on the Xbox version from what I've heard. I don't know how differently the two versions run. So
I think they run pretty much exactly the same, at least according to some people on Twitter I've seen.
From what I've been hearing, yeah, the two are pretty much neck and neck in performance.
It's probably only small small
Yeah,
things.
very small,
Yeah.
minute stuff. You get it if you're a fan of Microsoft over Sony, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I should also mention though that if you're a fan of not sorry, if you're gonna download this game, like be prepared to do something else in the meantime because
Well, even then, you don't really have a choice, physical or digital, because the physical game only comes with the first game, and you have to download the other two.
yeah,
More or less.
but even though when I downloaded it, it said, okay, I've downloaded a third of the game. You're ready to play, and I'm like, cool. And I started playing, and then I went to go to the second level, and the game was like, please wait for it to finish installing, and I'm like, what? So you have to even when the game says it's ready to play, that means it's only ready to play the first world of Spyro 1. So
But what about Gnasty Gnork?
what about Gnasty Gnork?
Ugly.
I don't know if you've beaten the game yet, but I love the dialogue they have. Not the dialogue, but they added background images to his like his treasure hoard level, and he's got like these different motivational posters hiding up, and one of them is
Yeah, I saw this.
One of them is knowledge, but spelled with a G, and I'm just like, oh man, that's great.
Knowledge.
Good knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah. Knowledge, Gnor.
Yeah. What did you think of the remix to Dave Copeland music, Ted?
Honestly, it sounds pretty similar to the original versions. So, it's good. It's Spyro. It's what I can recognize the music as Spyro music because the music is very distinct. Like, it has a sound that's recognizable. You hear those kinds of instruments with that kind of melody, and oh, it's Spyro music. With that said, I haven't found much of the music to be particularly memorable. Like the only
Besides the Amanda Show.
I was gonna say, is one of the song pieces in the first Spyro still sound like the Amanda Show?
Yeah.
It is the
Wizard
Amanda
Speak
Show.
is still Wizard Speak is still the
I can't
Amanda
unhear
Show.
that.
No, it's the same song. Stuart Copeland composed both the music for the
Oh,
Amanda Show.
Stuart, I thought. Why did I call him Dave?
I don't know. Is there
I'm terrible with names.
Is there another member of
Oh,
the police
Stuart,
named
that's a
Dave?
board name. Your name's Dave now.
But
I don't know.
but yeah, no, he composed the music for both the Amanda Show and Spyro. So I think they are basically. I think they might be an identical track. I'm not sure. But yeah, the music's good. I wouldn't call it like super memorable, but it's enjoyable and it fits the atmosphere of exploring really well. So I enjoy it.
All right, so I guess on to Spyro 3. This is going to be the most interesting one to see remade because I think it's the one that needed the most kind of tweaks to make it more enjoyable.
What do you think needed to be changed though?
Some of the difficulty scaling is kind of weird, and some of the control on the new friends that you control us needed to be kind of fixed.
Yeah, so it was. So I know that the Spyro 3 had one of those adjustable, dynamic difficulty things. I don't know what the specific name for it is, but it changed
Well,
the
it's
difficulty.
dynamic difficulty. Yeah.
It changed the difficulty depending on how well you were doing, basically.
Yeah.
So I can't say if that's still in this version of the game or what.
Or if it's in there, if they've tweaked it in some way.
Because there's no difficulty options for Spyro 1 and 2, I've noticed. The games just are.
They are what they are, and they're not terribly hard games, so.
Yeah. Like, specific challenges might be tricky. But generally, the game's pretty forgiving in that, you don't need... You have lives, but it's not really a big deal if you lose them, and the game's just pretty chill on the whole, because if you fail a challenge, you generally can just try it again. So, yeah, so the game's not generally too hard, I would say. So that will be interesting to see when I get around to Spyro 3. For this kind of collection, I don't like jumping around from game to game too much, which is weird because with other collections that I've played, like when I got the Sonic Mega Collection when I was a kid, I jumped from game to game in that one all the time, and it took me years to beat any of them. But for this, I really wanted to beat Spyro 1 before moving on to Spyro 2. And I want to get at least a good ways into 2 before beating 3. So, Yeah, but it's still, I think it's still a really fun time. I do really recommend giving it up. Not giving it up, picking it up. Give up.
Kicking the
Thanks, I
havoc.
hate it.
Give up, Spyro.
It's no use.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up before we just wrap things up in general, but I've been hearing some complaints about the intense motion blur. Out of all
Oh
games
yeah,
you
we
played this
brought
generation,
that
previous
up.
generation. Did you guys bring it up? Okay, I wasn't sure if you guys did. And,
Yeah, it doesn't really
Probably
affect me,
Spyro
but
too.
I can see why. Because the camera does like to swivel around a little bit whenever Spyro changes direction.
I think part of it has to do with because Spyro's such a small character, he's low to the ground a lot, and so the camera changes feel very dramatic because of the low camera angle a lot of the time. Like that's just my guess, but I would if you generally tend to have that problem with games, I would recommend looking into that. Like looking to see if they're if you have that problem with this game, I'd recommend looking up footage and seeing if that's going to be a problem with you. If that's the case and you still want to play it, I would probably go for the PC version where you can almost certain there's probably already a mod out that'll fix that for you. But I think otherwise it's still a really fun game and you should
Yeah,
give
and
it a shot.
it's also $40, same as when Crash came out. So you're getting 3 excellent games for $40.
Yeah, and they're pretty beefy too. Like the first one took me 7 hours to 100%, and I haven't gone for like achievements really or anything like that. So they're gonna last you a good time too. So yeah, I really would recommend trying them. As someone who's never played these games before, I'm glad to finally have the chance to try them out for myself. So yeah, basically, I really do recommend giving these a shot.
Yeah, and as a fan of Spyro, who grew up with basically the same way I did with Crash, it's great to have like the same kind of insane trilogy version for Spyro. Just have like these definitive versions that look great, they sound great, they play great.
Yeah.
It's just out.
Again, I'm more just in love. I'm more in love with what these remakes entail, really, because you're not only introducing a new generation to games that are, well, I don't want to say hard to come by because you can still download them on, online retailers, or not break the bank too much getting physical copies, but newer generations now get prettier, better versions of the game, and it really makes me excited for, well, what else could they do with other franchises to make them better experiences.
I mean, well, we're already getting Medieval next year.
Well, not
Yeah, I
even
mean,
just
Medieval's,
remakes. Like I'm hoping that they eventually go and make new, just straight up make new Spyro games.
Well,
Oh,
we're hoping the
agreed.
same
Yeah,
thing with Crash as well. So
Yeah, with Crash as well, I was like, if this means Crash games like this in the future, I am all for that.
Because I mean, like you've got this beautiful engine, and they don't want to just have that sitting around doing nothing. I'm sure. So, and I'm sure that everybody would be totally happy to see a new Spyro game because the last one in this style was Hero's
Legend.
Tale, I think.
or Hero's Tale.
Because the
It
Legend
was
of
mid
Spyro's
2000s.
I thought that the Legend of Spyro games were more like action RPG type ones or something.
I
like
haven't
that.
played them. Like Crash, I more or less stopped at PlayStation.
Yeah, but I know that people do not like Enter the Dragonfly.
Oh no, Enter the Dragonfly is terrible.
I know that people don't like that one, and I hear that people think that the one after that's okay. So getting another game that might actually be as good as these ones, I think is something that a lot of people would really like. But yeah, I'd be totally happy with them. I think that everybody would be happy with them remaking more old games too. Like I'm personally hoping that we get Banjo-Kazooie at some point. We'll see if that actually
Other
does happen.
companies after Crash and now Spyro, because I know a lot of people were excited for Spyro, and I hear it's doing very, very well. So other companies have to be looking at this and saying, okay, we can cut out a lot of the hard part of just having to design the game.
And then
And then
hire
sell
some good
real-
artists and and make the game
Yeah.
a lot.
Because with some franchises that could use a good remastering or just remake, you're sitting on a gold mine. Ted brings up Banjo-Kazooie. I think you remake the Sonic Adventure games.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, if you make
you
the
do
Sonic
that.
Adventure games, the internet will explode. So
The internet's going to explode anyway, Ted. You know very damn well that's what's going to happen.
it'll
Yes.
explode sooner. and there will
Yeah.
be a lot more live and learn memes before it happens.
But that is money right there. That is just money.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised I wouldn't be surprised if they are already working on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. So yeah, I really do recommend giving these games a shot. They're really, really fun. And yeah. And this is coming from the kid who burns when he touches a PlayStation controller, so, you know.
Yeah, he has to wear special gloves and everything to pick it up.
So
I
I'm
think
not
for a lot of
dicking
people, it's
around.
refreshing. I think it's for a lot of people, it's refreshing to see Spyro not relegated to Skylanders or a toy figure and all that sort of thing. Because I know for a while he was nothing but that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the
So to see it
Skylanders
back as a
games,
3D
from what I've
platformer.
seen, are fine. Like my brothers had the first one. It looked good enough. It looked like maybe a step above in complexity to like one of the Lego games. So it's not that the Skylanders games were bad, they just weren't Spyro games. Spyro was as minor of a character as all the other toys that you could play as. So seeing him get his own stuff back, I think is going to make a lot of people really happy.
Agreed. Yeah, that's Spyro Reignited. I am already in the process of recording Spyro 1 for the channel. Yay! Yeah, so thanks again, Activision, for the code. It means a lot to us, and we'll see you guys when we do Spyro 1 Reignited for the channel, hopefully sooner than later.